All right, in this lesson, we are going to be comparing rational numbers. And you may or may not have heard me use the word rational numbers before. But rational numbers covers a large group of numbers. And in this case, what we're going to be talking about is whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. Okay, and so what we're going to be doing is we are going to be comparing whole numbers to fractions, fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, decimals to whole numbers, and on and on and on and on and on. And so we need to remember how to convert between them so that we can compare them properly. Okay, now we're going to do some reviews before we get into the actual comparing of rational numbers. So let's go ahead and compare these real quick. Remember that you can line them up on top of each other, or you can see which number differs first. So here I have 4.17 and 4.74. So my 4's match, and then I have a 1 and a 7 here. 1 is less than 7, so this is going to be less than. Here I have 3.1 and 3.9. Okay, my 3's are the same, but then I have a 1 and a 9 and a 1 and a 9. 1 is less than 9. Over here I have 3.456 and 3.678. The 3's are the same, but then I have a 4 and a 6. So 4 is less than 6, so that is also less than. Over here I have 5.96 and 5.967. Now because I have an extra digit here, I need to add a 0 as a placeholder. So the 5's are the same, the 9's are the same, the 6's are the same, and then the last digit, a 0 and a 7. So 0 is less than 7, so this is going to be less than. And then here I have 1.3 and 1.30, and I need to add another one, another placeholder there, and those look like they are identical, and so I have an equal sign there. All right, now we have negative decimals that we need to compare, and so the same rules apply, so we're going to line them up on top of each other. So negative 8.4 and then negative 8.47, add a 0 as a placeholder. So the 8's are the same, the 4's are the same, and then I have a 0 and a 7 here. So I have a 0 compared to a negative 7. 0 is bigger than negative 7, so it's going to be greater than. Here I have a negative 0.3 and a negative 0.28. Add a 0 as a placeholder. So the 0's are the same, and then I have a negative 3 and a negative 2 there. So I just compare the negative 3, I compare the negative 3 and the negative 2. Negative 3 is less than negative 2. All right, and then down here, I have negative 5.81 and negative 0.581. Go back and add a 0 as a placeholder. So right here I have an immediate difference. I have a negative 5 and a 0. Negative 5 is definitely less than 0. All right, over here I have negative 0.45 and negative 0.045. Add a 0 as a placeholder there. The 0's are the same, but right here I have a difference. So I have negative 4 and 0, and negative 4 is less than 0. And then right here I have negative 4.92 and negative 4.94. So here my 4's cancel, my 9's cancel, and my difference is right here. I have a negative 2 and a negative 4. My negative 2, because it's closer to 0, is greater than negative 4. So that's my sign. Okay? Now, let's move on to a quick review of fractions. Remember, for fractions, we use the heart method. Okay? Some of you like to draw the heart all the way. I don't have too much space here for that, so I'm going to draw sort of like a half heart. So here I have 2 times 3 is going to be 6, and then 5 times 1 is going to be 5, and so 5 is less than 6, so my answer here is less than. So here I have 1/3 and 1/3, and that's pretty obvious without solving it, and so that's going to be equal. All right, now here I have 2/4 and 2/3, so 4 times 2 is going to be 8, and then 3 times 2 is going to be 6. 6 and 8, so 6 is less than 8, so less than is going to be my answer. Here I have 1/3 and 1/4. 4 times 1 is 4, and then 3 times 1 is 3. 4 is greater than 3, and so my answer is greater than. All right, here I have 4/5 and 2/4. 4 times 4 is 16, and then 5 times 2 is 10. 16 is greater than 10, so I have a greater than sign. And then here I have 1/4 and 1/2. So 4 times 1 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 is greater than 2, so 2 is less than. All right, so now we're actually going to get into comparing rational numbers now that we've done a quick review. So as we compare rational numbers, you need to make a big decision. And I'm going to give you my suggestion, but the decision is all yours. So if I give you the original problem here, you're going to compare 0.5 to 1/3. You need to decide, do you change all of the numbers into decimals or all of the numbers into fractions? My personal suggestion is that you change them into fractions because I believe that fractions are ultimately easier to compare than decimals are. But that is a choice that you need to make. I also think that it's a little easier to change a decimal into a fraction than to change a fraction into a decimal, which is why I suggest that as well. So here what I've done is I've taken 1/3 and I've brought it down, and I've taken 0.5 and made it into 5/10. Now some of you may be asking, why did I not simplify that 5/10? Because you're comparing, 5/10 is the same as 1/2. You're going to get the same answer either way, and so you actually do not have to simplify during this process, which is really nice. So then your step 2 is going to be to actually compare. Again, it's my decision to change them into fractions here. So 5 times 3 is 15. 10 times 1 is 10, and so 15 is greater than 10, so it's going to be a greater than sign. All right, let's go ahead and practice, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So here you can spend some time and change this into a decimal. But if you look at this really closely, this says 525 thousandths. What I can do is just put a fraction bar here and write 1,000 under it. And since I don't have to simplify in order to solve the problem, I can just start to simplify right now by going 1,000 times 2 is 2,000. And then I will have to do 5 times 525. But that's not going to take long at all compared to the amount of time that it would take to do the rest of it. So 5 times 5 is 25, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. So this would equal 2,625. So this is going to be less than. Okay. Let's take a look at this one here, 1/2 and 0.6, so that's 6/10. So I can put a fraction bar there and just put a 10 under it, and then I can start to compare. 10 times 1 is going to be 10, and then 2 times 6, okay, remember because we've made this a fraction, 6 over 10, 2 times 6 is 12, so 10 is less than 12. So that's a less than sign. That's why I'm saying it's significantly easier to change them into fractions. All right, so over here we have 1/5 and 75 thousandths. So I'm just going to make this a fraction by putting it over 1,000. So I have 1,000 times 1, which is just simply 1,000. And then I have 5 times 75, which I'm going to do quickly right over here. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is 37. So that's going to be 375. And 1,000 is greater than 375. Okay. Over here, I have 667 thousandths. So I'm going to put it over 1,000. And then I'm going to go ahead and compare. 1,000 times 2 is 2,000. And then 3 times 667. I'm going to have to do the math right over here. 7 times 3 is 21. 3 times 6 is 18 plus 2 is 20. And then 3 times 6 is 18 plus 2 is 20. So that's going to be 2001. So those were extremely close, but 2000 is less than 2001. So it's going to be less than. Okay, let's do some of these. So I have 1/3 and 458 thousandths. So again, I'm going to put it over 1,000 and I'm going to compare. 1,000 times 1 is 1,000. And then 3 times 458. 458 times 3. So 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 is 17. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1 is 13. So this would be 1,374, and 1,000 is less than 1,374. Here I have 1/2 and 5/10, so I'm going to go ahead and put this under 5 under the 10. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply now, or cross multiply. So 10 times 1 is 10. And 2 times 5 is also 10, and so these are equal. All right, so I know that this says you try, but I'm going to do these with you as well since they are negatives and they are a little new. So here we have negative 675 thousandths, so I'm going to put it under 1,000. And remember, there's no change here. It's just remembering that negatives, the bigger number is the smaller number. So 4 times 1,000 is going to be negative 4,000, because remember they're negatives now. Okay, and then we have 5 and 675. So 675 times 5. Okay, 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 7 is 35, and then plus 2 is 37. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 3 is 33, and so this is going to be negative 3,375. So negative 4,000 and negative 3,375. Negative 4,000 is less than. All right. So then over here we have negative 1/4 and negative 1/10. So we're going to put that under a 10, and we're going to multiply. 1 times 10 is going to be 10, but it's negative. And then 4 times 1 is going to be 4, but it's negative. So we have negative 10 and negative 4. And negative 10 is farther away from 0, so it is smaller. It's less than. All right. Over here we have negative 1/2 and negative 475 thousandths. So 1,000 times 1 is going to be 1,000, but it's negative. And then 2 times 475. 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So this is going to be negative 950. And then you have negative 1,000 and negative 950. So negative 1,000 is smaller, so it's less than. All right, that is the end of the comparing rational numbers lesson. Remember, you can change them to all fractions or all decimals. I recommend all fractions on this one. We will practice more in class.